Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are going to be having a look at ganking differences. That means comparing and contrasting multiple ranks within the game to see what is being done right and what isn't being done right, even at the highest level. And yes, that means there are some funny clips to laugh at, roast, but also hopefully learn from. And really the 10 commandments for ganking I released earlier in the year will actually serve as a foundation principle to this video, where this is more an application and looking at the real world examples that we can analyze in order to improve. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing. Don't forget to head to my gameplay channel, which is getting regular Season 11 jungle gameplay analysis, as well as joining me on Planet 9 for giveaways as well as the coaching we will begin again in the new year. And now without further hesitation, let's begin. And as we will jump from example to example, we're not looking at a sort of X's and O's, this is how you gank, that was done in other videos. This will be very free-flowing, jumping from different elos to different ideas that you need to know in order to be a successful ganker. Right, we will start off with a challenger example because it's good to see what you should be doing before we look at what you shouldn't. And we will start this video off with a dive and then end it with a dive when we talk about how to do it, as well as having a lot of repeat ganks. The Lee Sin, a very simple gank here, but it's cleanly done. Rotates up to the top wave after 4 camps, shields the cannon to take 1 tower shot before he leaves aggro range. It swaps back to the minion so that the Lee Sin can hit his Q, follow up with flash slows, and then use the execute Q, the second proc, before minion hopping to safety out of tower range. All in all, this gank has everything you need to look at a good example. Great timing in the early game with a 4 camp to sync up with the level 3 top laners, knowing his laner will have minion prior to push, thus a dive is necessary and possible, and the enemy laner has no time to react and get away. This relies on mechanical prowess and timing, and even if you look at Canyon here with the Nidalee, yeah, he flashed the wall, which means he went for the dive fully and had no way to escape, and all of a sudden he's dead. Although Canyon seems to be relaxing, I've seen him flash Lilia level 2 invade lately. Regardless, you can see even at the highest elos, impatience and bad positioning can cost you deaths. But even down in gold and low elo, you can see this Olaf actually executes a well-timed dive on the enemy Jax. The ult is used a little bit soon and the Garen seems to just be, a Garen incarnate, but they're able to execute the dive nicely. But the most important thing here is the mechanical ability to play your champions to the right level. Even in another challenger Korean level game on like -3 ping, the Rek'Sai doesn't ult in time to avoid the tower aggro, and the Gragas' Gatorade dump. So what can we learn from these examples? Great execution, great timing, a variety of elos all coming together with different pros and cons, and that's why I opened with this. It's very important not only that you have great mechanics when you do ganks, especially counter ganks, like this Lee Sin shows you by smiting a minion for level 6. But this gank here is absolutely loaded because the enemy team tries to clean up the Lee Sin, he has his ult now, it's a great disengage, the rest of his team has collapsed. They made the mistake of not paying attention to the location of the enemy team. Lee Sin capitalized, used his ultimate, and he shoved the wave to create lane prio, using that gank and mechanical prowess to get ahead, shoving the wave to deny, and translating that to a lead on the map. The Kai'Sa in turn can either help with the dragon or simply wait a little bit and handle the wave as she wants to. This is very important because look at the Zac in silver. He is EAing in after his Jax died 1v1, and he is randomly taking and pushing all the CS down. The Jax has TP, he can get back into lane and simply last it under tower. Now does a silver top lane Jax know any of this? Maybe not. But what you're doing as a jungler as you get through the ranks is inherently screwing your laner. Don't semi-push waves, don't, over-push waves that can be frozen. Don't gank in the middle of one when your laner isn't ready to actually engage. And if you do that, please make sure your mechanics are on point. This Silver Olaf is throwing axes to Narnia trying to become the new king and, not even remotely hitting the enemy laner. He also wasn't remotely paying attention to the fact that his laner had no mana. There was a huge wave pushed up against her, which means you can't E and CC. There was also a cannon wave that he just ran into. A flawed gank from a mechanical point of view, a timing point of view, and of course a wave point of view. And don't worry, we're gonna roast and educate every single MMR in this video. So you platinum and low diamonds that are kinda laughing right now, hey, look at this Talia. Goes counter jungling, wants to dive top wave. Doesn't realize Renekton isn't looking to hard push and dive, which means she's out of position when the Anivia goes to defensively ward, and then when she gets surprised by the enemy laner, throws out spells like she's an original trilogy stormtrooper, which forces her to waste a flash and then, lose an advantage in the subsequent ganks that she wants to go ahead and do. So please, when you are going for a gank, and I understand people have mechanical mishaps, Make sure you know your champion, save your spells for the right moment. It's okay to burn, flashes with your first gank because then you can set up repeat ganking. We will talk about that at the end, but don't use your flash and ghosts on ganks where you have a guaranteed kill and you're never going to get the other laner. It puts you in this awkward position of not having an advantage you should have, especially when a gank goes well. In lower elos, this might be wasted. But this also very much ties into using your mobility and escape tools to open a gank. QA gold level gaming Kha'Zix. Hey, there's a pushing level Ariana against my Fizz. We don't have a lot of CC, but together we can definitely have enough damage to burn her sums, ignite, and destroy her. He gets cut off by the cane and wastes way too much time instead of continually moving to pull the trigger. And because he eases in, sure he burns the flash, but now he's forced to sort of auto-attack right-click and follow her to his doom. And I have no idea why you're actually overly chasing this. As a wave, you burned her flash, move on with your life. Setting up flashes and summon a spell burns are absolutely fantastic, especially in this elo, because I guarantee you the Orianna isn't going to respect the fact that she has no flash. But just free-inting your buffs away? No. If you were going to chase a kill done, you need to know your limits and when to pull the trigger. And this all depends on who has CC, who doesn't, and what the nature of the wave is. It's very easy in Challenger to see it. If the laner has CC and you're the Nidalee, you're going mid lane, the Talon takes an overly aggressive wall hop, Pantheon immediately stuns him, Nidalee hits the spear, and he's as good as dead. Limits of the champions are known, the trigger is pulled, and they immediately sync up knowing that's when they have to go. This is just something you do not see the lower down you go. The Pantheon might stun, but the jungler's not really thinking about that and doesn't throw the spear out. That means a huge herald push on the mid lane plus a kill that can really break the game open isn't actually achieved, and teams that can scale, well, they get free passes, get their item spikes, you lose a mid-game fight over the dragon, and now you're complaining about something that you could have easily avoided. Look top lane, it's the same thing. The Camille has CC, the Nidalee doesn't. Times the approach quickly, the Camille sees the Nidalee arriving, goes in and ults before the Nidalee gets there, which primes her for a simple engage follow-up, netting another big kill. And the same goes the other way. If the jungler has a CC, you can go in first, you make sure the wave is in a good position, the laner can follow up with damage, and you can really take over games. I talk more about this in the 10 Commandments of Ganking, really setting up the laners and the junglers, but very often it's when you go for a gank and you scan and you see a ward, people stop to clear it instead of just going. If you have the lane in a great position, just simply keep going. You do not need to stop to clear the ward, because if the laners commit and you're busy hitting the ward saying, hold up, I'm busy here, they might actually die 2v2 and then you're in a bad position. And on that note, of course, is having that ultimate power spike. Too many junglers go for these ganks when their all-powerful ultimate isn't ready to go, or simply they waste it in a bad way. A Master Tier career Taliyah sits in the tribush, scanned it through, lane is in a good position, uses the ult to cut off and get in once the Camille's already fighting, clean up gank, very easy. Our Narnia axe-throwing Olaf from earlier in Silver does the same kind of thing except, it's wrong. Finishes a dragon, well done, goes to the bottom lane, sees the support out of position, presses R, and just chases. No consideration of where the enemy team is, no consideration where his team is, simply presses R, chases down, runs through the tower, loses his HP, and runs away. That's not what we mean. Even in your Diamond Plat level games, you're going to see Taliyahs use their ult on a Twisted Fate who has his ult up and then just goes to the other side of the wall, which is kind of weird, but it works, so good job. And then the Taliyah misses the mechanical spell, not expecting the outplay. So many times, everything below high elo just don't expect the enemy to respond. And what this can do is put you in really bad positions when you go counter jungling afterwards, you've wasted your flash, you wasted your ult in those ganks, you get collapsed upon and you die. That's why not wasting spells and why I focused on that first Lee Sin example at the beginning, because everything was done with intention, execution, and to the point of actually getting ahead in the game. If you waste spells and you waste ultimate and you waste summoners, you are simply looking for tragedy. And in that Taliyah example we looked at just now about, avoiding the ward that is there and simply going into the gank, look at also what happened. Great target selection. She didn't waste any unnecessary spells trying to chase down the Xerath. That kill was going to be secured by her bottom lane, focused on the enemy laner that would be harder to kill, and in turn they grab a 2 for 0. What about a nice low elo Evelynn? Now we don't always like to gank early, do we? But ganking as Evelynn has to be extremely opportunistic, and when the enemy bottom lane is really pushed and 2v2ing yours, well, it's all we could really ask for, but chases down the kill on the Vayne, which means sacrificing your ADC who's currently battling the support Jarvan. If you're watching the summoner spell usage and watching the Thresh, you probably do not need to chase after the Vayne. W the Jarvan, save your ADC, make sure she lives, get a kill yourself and not have to burn your own flash. What happens in this situation is that you lose your spells, you show where you are, yeah, you shut down, but your ADC is dead, which means the advantage of you showing up isn't really fulfilled. The loss of the waves, the fact that she only got an assist, it means the advantage isn't really as great as you might think it is. The right target selection and ganks and making sure you are focusing the right one and not greeting for yourself is one of the biggest difference makers between good gankers and bad gankers. Now all of this means nothing if you gank once and don't come again. Repeat and abuse has been the mantra on this channel since day one, and even in the Jarvan video I just put on the gameplay channel, we talked very heavily about why his ganking was so good and that he repeat ganked 3 times using map control, predictions, and tracking to get the most experience and gold out of a situation by actually sticking around in the right way. Challenger Rek'Sai goes for a gank top lane. Laner isn't quite ready, little bit of miscommunication, no problem, I fall back down, I'll take my blue. I know that the ward is there, but Akali is ready this time, the lane's in a better position, we have the right levels. Use your flash and slap that one in the bag. But in a almost humorous setting, I want to highlight a bit of a longer form example from Silver Gold, that low elo range with that Olaf from Narnia, as well as the Zac he is against. A lot of the things we've talked about in this video just are not done, and you can see how drastically it's going to affect the outcome of the game. The Zac support is in base or dead, the Olaf hits a plant showing he's on the bottom side, the same side, and the Zac decides anyway, hey, I'm gonna gank into a full wave, cannon wave, Ezreal, let's go. Ezreal tanks a whole bunch of minions, Olaf is there to counter gank. Yes, they are able to secure a kill on the Tahm Kench and the Caitlyn, that's great, but the lack of jungle awareness means that now Olaf can finally hit an axe, it disappears into another dimension from his perspective, but he is able to grab himself a kill. Now Olaf doesn't care about the waves, double cannon doesn't matter, maybe slow pushing doesn't matter, I'm ignoring it and I'm leaving. The Zac, as from earlier, just sort of pushes the wave, doesn't really think about it, doesn't matter if it might even set up a freeze for the enemy. He just wants to touch the minions. The Malphite finally shows up and the Olaf thinks, hey, let's repeat gank. Why? He didn't track or time or think about the Malphite whatsoever. He didn't even look at the wave. He thinks he can just win 2v1. No mechanical understanding, no wave understanding, no respawn timing, but a lot of comedy. And if you think it's over, it isn't. The red bottom lane simply start fighting. They ignore their wave's position and the ability to zone. Tahm Kench just walks into it and starts tanking it. The Zac has good awareness and can repeat gank. Now you have to pay attention. Do I have my passive? Do we have enough damage and, focus that I don't get killed? And of course, can I punish the enemy's positioning because it's just so ridiculous? The answer to that, of course, is yes. The Ezreal falls because, the elo, but then they're able to actually kill the Caitlyn as well. So overall, a good few minutes for the Zac, and shows that even if you are missing a few certain fundamentals in your gameplay, understanding when and how to repeat gank and abuse that bad positioning from laners is the biggest advantage you have in grabbing the big sack of gold and of course getting a few laughs along the way, especially if you are against the Olaf, who somehow ended up with 12 kills and won the game. But to bring this full circle, when you look at tower aggro juggling, when you know who goes in first, who goes in second, when both of you have good mechanical prowess, when you're timing the waves and your approaches appropriately, when you are ganking, do something else, gank again, take a camp, gank again, you're getting this prime high elo Elise example where it's very easy to get one laner hugely snowballing, very easy to get yourself ahead and make sure they are fully suppressed over the course of quite a few minutes, and that not only forces enemy laners to react and rotate, and not only forces the enemy jungler to play your game or do something about it, but also best primes you for game state elevation, again see the Jarvan video, which allows you to win more games earlier without needing to worry about the scaling fights, the 5v5 fiestas, and all of that is through ganking execution, understanding, and all the principles we talked about in this video. So it doesn't matter if you're silver and you've got a long way to go, it doesn't matter if you're plat or diamond and have the ego the size of Jupiter. You are still a long way from perfection, and even in the highest tiers mistakes are made, coordination isn't the best, it's solo queue after all. But just identifying and breaking down your ganks, looking at the position of the waves, what we do afterwards, what was my target selection, could I have had a better approach? Because at the end of the day, ganking is all about your pathing, your approach angles, and how you exploit gaps in vision and knowledge of enemy matchups in order to give yourself the best possible chance of actually having successful ganking. So thank you all for watching, I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. A little bit of a free-flowing video just looking at a whole bunch of ganks, good and bad, what we can improve on, things to keep in mind. Sometimes I just have all these extra clips and ideas and I just want to rinse through them to bring you something. Enjoy the holidays this week if you celebrate, otherwise best of luck in whatever you're doing. There won't be a second video, but there will be more on the gameplay channel, so thank you very much for watching, and as always I will see you all in the next tutorial.